Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, the home of Googlization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy shift going on all around us and explore the disruptive convergence of technology, business, and people. Here are your hosts, Ira Wolfe and Jason Cochran.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to a special episode. Actually, it's not Wednesday, it's Tuesday. So if you're confused, so are we. It's a very special episode of Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization, a show from the People Forward Network. I'm Ira Wolfe, and thank you for being part of Googlization Nation.
And I'm Jason Cochran. If you think this is just another podcast, think again. We're the voice of the crucial conversations that are confronting business leaders and people today. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the impact from the convergence of business, technology, and people.
For anyone connected to me on LinkedIn, earlier today, maybe just an hour or so ago, you got my latest Never Normal newsletter. If you're not a subscriber, just please connect with me and please subscribe to it. The headline was Running a Marathon in Clown Shoes. And I got to give credit to a colleague of ours, a friend of ours, a former guest on the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show, Jacob Morgan, for that one. What most of us are finding is that it's really hard to be a 2019 version of ourselves in the world we live in now. It's exhausting, and you just look at the stress and the burnout, and even for the people who, like me and Jason and everybody else that's been on the show that just loves change, embraces change. It's really challenging. So we're really excited to have this special edition today of Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization, because we wanted to have a standalone episode to announce our new partner and sponsor of the show, the Y Institute. We expect that everyone, all of Googlization Nation, and anybody that comes into Googlization Nation is going to be really sharing our excitement. And you might be wondering, who is Y Institute? Well, you're going to learn much more about them shortly, but they've created the first and only Y discovery tool to help you get clear, play bigger, and stand out. It's your GPS. Get clear, play bigger, and stand out. And especially timely for living in the never normal. If Y sounds familiar, it's probably because you heard from its founder, Dr. Y himself, Gary Sanchez, on our show just about a month ago. We're thrilled to have Gary back with us today to celebrate and discuss the new partnership together, along with Dan Dominguez, the Chief Growth Officer of Y Institute.
Ira, I honestly can't remember the last time I was this excited. You know that my purpose in life, much like yours, is all about making healthy connections between people and work. So when we met Dan and Gary at the Y Institute a while back, they felt like brothers from another mother that are on this mission of helping others discover their why and purpose in life and also in business. And I've been doing this long enough now to know that the number one barrier to people discovering their why and their purpose is because they don't know what to do, or they're not sure what step to take. It sounds like something that's really complicated. Well, Gary and Dan and the Y Institute, they've created an easy button, just like the one from Staples in those Staples office commercials. And they've created this very simple discovery tool where in 5 minutes, just from your phone, you can discover your why in life. I mean, how cool is that? And so without further ado, let's give a warm Googlization Nation welcome to Gary Sanchez and Dan Dominguez from the Y Institute, our new sponsors.
I love it.
Hey, welcome, guys.
Thank
you, Ira.
And thank you. Thank you for being our new sponsors, new partners. And as Jason said, we are so excited about this. It's addicting. It really is addicting. And you can see from all our titles, we have up there what our number one why is, and you can see the contributes a big part of this, and that's what we do. I mean, that's what we do every week, and it just resonated so well, and it fits in because I've been talking about how people get things done, what energizes them, why they get things done for 27 years, ever since I started this business. I wrote a book about that. And this really just helped to make it so much clearer, so much easier to find out than going through all the steps and the trials and tribulations. Before we jump into Why Institute, let's talk a little bit about, let's lead off with this question of how we got together, how we got connected. And I don't know if maybe Dan or Gary, you want to take that?
I'll take that because we are both part of People Forward Network's network, right? So we met Nikki Llewellyn and David Gregory. By the way, another great contribute guy. David Gregory and I got on the phone and we started talking about the mission of Why Institute and how we want to make a difference by helping people discover their why, helping 1 billion people discover their why. And David's like, oh, you got to meet Nikki. Next thing we know, I'm on People Forward Network's member calls and I meet Jason and I get to meet David, and I actually got to meet Jason in person not too long ago, and I went to Indianapolis. But Nikki's done such a great job. She started, now the way we got connected to Nikki was through Rosie Ward, one of our longtime YOS coaches. She's a Y certified coach who's bringing the Y to her clients. And she introduced us to Nikki. Nikki introduced us to you. And so, big shout out to Nikki and the People Forward Network, because that's how we came together. That's how we got to know each other. Then, of course, you can't have Why Institute without having Gary. So I had to bring Gary in. You guys had him on your podcast, and, the relationship has just grown. I think the cool thing about what we do, and Gary, we were just on the phone with Paul Epstein, who's our chief purpose advisor. And he talked about dopamine, or Gary was talking about the dopamine hit that you get when you make a difference in your client's life. When they get that aha moment, and you guys have now experienced it a few times, right? When you help somebody discover their why, it just energizes you. I mean, you can't replace that. And when you're doing it, Paul was talking about it from a speaker standpoint, when you're on a stage and you make a difference for the audience. And then we get to do that on a smaller scale with our clients. So, man, that's Gary. Anything you want to add? Because we brought you into this, and it's been such a fabulous partnership.
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about, Dan, is that when you help someone when you get to discover your own why, it gives you that clarity, that confidence, that certainty as to who you are, and then how to articulate it, how to say it, so that you get the words to go with the feelings or what you think your why is. But when you get to help someone else discover their why, that's when you really get that dopamine blast, and it feels good. And then you want to have that again. So you help somebody else, and you want to keep having it. And I've seen Jason and Ira both go through that they're like, yeah, I discovered my own why, and that was awesome. But now when I get to help somebody else and I get to have a bigger impact, that's when it really makes a difference. So for those of you that are watching, you can see that Ira, Jason, and Dan have contribute next to their name, because that's their why. They want to be that pebble that starts the ripple that goes on in the lives of others. And how they go about doing that in this situation is by helping them discover their why. And it's been the same thing for me. Once I started helping people to discover their why, I couldn't stop. I did it for thousands of people for free, you guys. Imagine that. And it's been an amazing ride. And I don't want to take all the time, so I'd love to, I know you guys had some questions. Maybe we start there.
I want to reinforce what you both just shared, which was, folks right now, they might be wondering, okay, I understand on an intellectual level why my why is really important, why I should understand it. But just last week, I had the opportunity to walk through doing the why with a group here in Indianapolis with a logistics company. And what I was not prepared for were the tears of the walls coming down and people saying, finally, something that helps me understand myself and helps me communicate with other people. And these people were across the table from each other. And even though they've worked with each other for several years, it was like it was the first time they truly started to understand where each was coming from. And all of that came about from just figuring out their why. It was almost like two people that have spoken different languages all of a sudden are able to speak the same language, because now they're talking about their whys. And so I just wanted to share that I got to see the beauty of that happen last week with a company here in Indianapolis, and reinforce that that's just one of the many benefits that comes along from understanding your why is it really deepens those relationships and help you understand each other on a deeper level.
Could I add one thing to that, Jason? You know, if someone were to come up to Dan or I or either of you and say, so what is this why thing that you do? What is this why thing all about? The way that I answer that is I'll say, well, you know how there are so many people that struggle with trying to figure out who they are. They're frustrated. They're unfulfilled. They're not knowing where to start to figure themselves out. And when they try to do it, they become overwhelmed because there's so many options and so many choices, right? There's Myers-Briggs and Colby and Strength Finders and DISC and coaches and consultants and psychologists and so many different places that they could go to, when all they really need is to know what is the first step. Where do I start? And we believe that knowing your why is that first step. And you talked about that, Jason. It's the place that you start. It's the start here button. Because once you start with your why, all the rest of those will make a lot more sense to you. Those are how you take action, but not why you take action. Mm-hmm. And so start with your why. The rest will make sense. Don't start with your why and you'll jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next, looking for something new. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Gary. And it's so critical today. I mean, what we hear, whether, you know, it's a real thing, and I know there's a big debate about quiet quitting. Gary, you and I was thinking about this. 27 years ago, I quiet quit. And I'm here to tell the story. I mean, I was literally cutting back on my hours. For those that don't know, I mean, my first career, I was a dentist. Practice, had a hugely successful practice. Gary, a dentist. Maybe that's the theme. I know everybody says, oh yeah, we have the highest suicide rates, highest burnout rates. It's beyond that, because you can make a great living, and there's a lot of people that really enjoy what they were doing. But basically, I decided literally 35 years ago that I had the successful practice, but I was burning out. I was stressed out. I wasn't enjoying it. So maybe if I work less, maybe rather than 40 hours, I can cut it back to 20 to 30 hours. And then I cut it back to 20 hours. And I cut it back to 20 hours, and I replaced it with 6 rounds of golf a week. And you know what? It didn't make it better. It made it worse. And the problem was, you know, I wish knew you 30 years ago. Simon Sinek was around 30 years ago. And we could have found out our why, you know, what the why was. And it took me a long time to figure that out, or to get comfortable with that, because you get all this noise from everybody else. But you spent so much getting an education. You've done it so long. You're so good at it. Well, I was good at it. I just didn't enjoy doing it. Now you think about all the people that are really struggling with their life. What's next? As my intro said, people are trying to live their past versions of themselves, and it's not working out too well.
Yeah. You know, I think, Gary, you bring up a great point because of the history, you know, and Gary and I have similar stories. You know, we were both successful in different careers. I was operating at a really high level in my sales role at a Fortune 100 company, and I just didn't feel like it was what I needed to be doing. And Gary he was my dentist, so I know how successful he was, because I remember I'd get my insurance bill and then I'd have to write a check for a couple $100 more than they were willing to pay. So success financially and practice-wise, everybody who's anybody went to Gary. Myself, I was succeeding at a high level. My teams were hitting quota all the time, but I didn't feel like I was making a difference. So the story was, I decided one day, based on an event that happened in my life, that I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to find something that I love to do. So I left. I decided to leave. Go ahead, Gary. He's going to say something.
Don't skip that event. You got to tell them the event.
All right.
So the story.
So I come home, guys, and you know this. You, because these are the people you're talking to. These are your clients. I wish I had a Y coach. I come home from a business trip. I'm spending 3 weeks out of the month on the road. I come home, and my wife hands me my daughter's journal. She's like, "Here, I want you to read this." My daughter's 6 years old, turning 7, Sophia. And in the journal, it's about her birthday party that's coming up. And it's a great scene. She's describing all her friends are there. We live on a small farm. The sheep are out, the chickens, it's like a petting zoo. And she's describing this idyllic scene. And then she gets to a point where she says, unfortunately, my dad couldn't be there because he had to work. And his work's important, so I didn't want to bother him. I wanted to call him and thank him, but I didn't want to bother him. I made a decision that day, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I need to be home. I need to be home for those important events that my daughter thinks are not important enough. And that's when I made the decision that I am leaving. So a week later, I'm in front of HR and I said, hey, give me my pension, my 401k, my stock options, I'm out. And then at Gary, I have an appointment with him and I go to him and he's like, hey, Dan, what's this? I hear you're leaving Baxter. And I said, yeah, I'm out. What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, Gary, but whatever I do next, I'm going to love. And here comes the fateful question. He says, Dan, do you know your why? I said, what the heck are you what is that? And so we got into the conversation. So Gary helped me discover my why, my how, and my what. And all of a sudden it all made sense. It was like, oh, so I have a need to contribute to the success of others, make a difference, make a positive impact. When I was dealing with numbers and sales quotas and hitting the number, that wasn't about people. That was about doing your job. Just like Ira, fixing teeth wasn't about contributing. That's not what you're meant to do. You're meant to make a difference, right? Gary's meant to find a better way. And that the way he became a successful dentist and when he started doing it a better way. So we all have that drive. And once I figured that out, I was like, Gary, I want to do this for more people. And Gary was saying, I want to grow this. And so we came together and now Gary, it's going to be 3 years in October that we've been getting this message out to the world. And it's been just a blast because every day I get to contribute to the success of others.
And Gary, the journey started more than just 3 years ago. It didn't start with meeting Dan. Kind of tell our listeners, tell Googlization Nation a little bit about the journey.
Yeah, so I was a dentist like Ira. When I graduated from USC Dental School in 1988, the advice that I was given by the experts or the coaches or the gurus of that time was build a great product and people will come. And a lot of you have probably heard that, right? Go out and do the best job you can. People will naturally and mysteriously find out about you. So I spent 20 years doing that. I went to the best institutes, worked with the best dentists, had the best study clubs, beautiful office, well-trained team, all the technology, all the stuff, man. I had a great product, but I can tell you that just having a great product oftentimes is not enough, right? I remember sitting in my office, looking at my computer screen at my half-empty schedule, wondering, how could this have happened to me? How could I put so much time, money, energy into this? And I blend in with everybody else who says, yeah, I'm a dentist too, right? So whatever business you're in right now, there's somebody else that's doing it. And if all you do is talk about what you do, you blend in with everybody else who talks about what they does what you do. And so I was ready to quit, kind of like Ira. I was decreasing my hours. And I realized that I either had to find a coach to help me or I needed to quit. And so I went out and I hired a coach. And through that coach, I learned how to use the internet. I learned how to do websites, drip campaigns, SEO, all that stuff, so I could get my message out to the world. But the only problem was, what am I going to say? What am I going to say that separates me from everyone else who's doing what I do? So since I didn't know, I didn't want to sound desperate. So I just stayed quiet until one day I heard Simon Sinek talk about this concept of why. So hopefully you've seen his TED Talk or read his book. It's an awesome book. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. And when I read that, I was like, that's what I'm missing. I got a great what, but I don't know my why. So I became obsessed with discovering my why. I called Simon. I said, Simon, I need you to help me discover my why. He and I spent about 6-8 months together going back through my life looking for clues, trying to figure out my why. And when I finally did, that my why is to find a better way and share it, my life made so much sense to me. I've got lots of patents and products and inventions that are all better ways of doing things. So I took what I learned from my coach, and I took what I learned from Simon Sinek, and I combined them into this whyification process, applied it to my practice, and my practice took off. And so as my practice took off, we went from just getting by to having abundance. I started helping other dentists. And I helped a few hundred dentists, then a few hundred lawyers and chiropractors, and businesses kept getting bigger and bigger. But what I would do is I would sit down with them and help them discover their why. I found a better way to do it. So instead of taking 6 or 8 or 10 months to do that, I could help them in about an hour and then help them build their messaging, marketing, branding, all based on their why. I did this thousands of times for free. And I started to notice patterns and trends and similarities. And I figured out there's only 9 different whys. And that was the most important thing that I discovered, because once we knew there were 9 whys, then I could develop the algorithm, write the software where you could go online and discover your why in about 5 minutes. Now we could scale. Now we could get more and more data. And through that, last year, we launched the YOS discovery. So the YOS discovery does your why, your how, your what, and creates your message for you. So right now on the screen, you see Ira is contribute, Jason is contribute, Dan is contribute, I'm better way. You're only looking at us in one dimension, the dimension of our why. But when you add our how and our what, it becomes even clearer. So Ira's why is to contribute to a greater cause, add value, have an impact in people's lives, just like Jason and Dan. But how he does that is by finding better ways. And ultimately what Ira brings are solutions that are outside the box, that are different, that are not typical. So if you listen to Ira a lot, you know what he comes up with is not typical or traditional. It's different. It's fun. It's exciting. It's outside the box. Now, Jason's why is to contribute to a greater cause. How he does that is by making sense out of the complex and challenging. And ultimately what he brings is the trusted solution, or he wants to be the trusted source. So his why is contribute. How he does it is by making sense, solving problems, ultimately to be that trusted source, the one that you can count on. What he tells you is going to be the truth. And then Dan's why is to contribute to a greater cause. How he does that is by challenging the status quo and thinking differently. And ultimately what he brings are solutions that make sense. So they have the same why, but they do it all differently. And that's what the YOS discovery allows us to do. It allows us to see in 3 dimensions who we are, give us the words to articulate that. Because my why is to find a better way. How I do that is by making things clear and understandable. And ultimately what I bring is a simple solution to help others move forward. And so that was probably a little longer than you wanted, Ira, but that's the essence of the story that brought us all together, because now we can scale. Now we can have an impact. I see it as a better way. You guys see it as a way to contribute, add value, and have a bigger impact in this world.
And how you just described it there, Gary, is a perfect reason for why the coaches and consultants in Googlization Nation should be raising their hand and signing up saying, I want to bring this into my practice, right? I mean, Can you share just how much value that brings to coaches and consultants in their practice, and maybe share some stories you've heard from coaches and consultants that once they brought this in, just elevated the value of what they were being able to deliver for their clients and also understanding themselves?
Dan, I think I'd like you to take that, because Dan is the one who really works with all of our coaches. You've worked with hundreds of coaches now, helping them not only understand it for themselves, but implement it into their practice. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
You know what I have found, Jason, and I work with, as Gary said, every coach that's come in. You know, when we started, we had a few coaches that were certified in YOS, but as we've grown, as we continue to expand our footprint, we've added coaches in New Zealand, Australia, England, Germany, France. As coaches come on board, I get to hear what value they get. And at the end of the day, who we're looking for is we like to work with coaches, consultants, creatives, and founders who are looking for a better way. I was talking this morning with one of our prospective coaches, and what we were talking about is, what value does this bring? Well, the value that it brings is everybody talks about why. Everybody talks about finding out, starting with self-awareness, right? So if you're going to start with self-awareness, we believe that knowing your why is the first step. And a lot of coaches have a system or a process that they spend. I had one coach literally say, Dan, you just saved me 7 hours, because that's how long I normally spend with a person to really get to know them. You know, my first onboarding session is, we're going to get together. We're going to learn. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to tell me stories, and we're going to get to know each other so that I can know why you do what you do. And he says, but you just did the YOS with me, and you got it right on the first time. And so the accuracy, right? There's a genius to the algorithm. Gary developed the why discovery a long time ago, and it helped people get to their why. And then after a year, we've been together for about 1.5 years, we said, could we apply that same algorithm to the how and the what? And we created that so that, because in the past, Jason and Ira, you guys haven't experienced this, but we used to sit down with clients and literally have to figure out their how and their what by doing the same process, asking questions, telling stories. So it would take a little longer. Now we have that tool, the YOS that we launched in October of 2021, that helps us know that in 8 to 10 minutes, answering 35 questions. So the coach this morning said, well, this is a better way. If you're looking for a better way to get to know your clients and be clear and do it in a simple way, then the YOS is for you. If you're looking for a way to get to know your clients better, understand them at a deeper level, help them understand themselves, help you understand yourself, then this is for you. That's really the bottom line. And everybody that I talk to, and it doesn't matter what your why is, because you guys, listen, Googlization Nation, I want people to know, Ira and Jason aren't just talking about this. They've invested, right? They went through the certification process. So, when you go through that, you learn about every one of the 9 whys. So you guys know every why's strengths, every why's challenges, and then how to overcome those challenges. Because at the end of the day, if you're a coach and consultant and you're working with someone, Ira, you and I and Jason, we connected on the fact that here's what I knew about you. You love to help people. But what I also knew is, like me, you can't say no. Right? That's a challenge that we have when we're contributors. We want to help everyone. We'll give stuff away. Somebody comes to us with a sob story. Oh, I need help. Guess what? We're going to raise our hand and help. And so what we find is we try to do everything for everyone, and we don't make a significant difference anywhere. If you're helping everyone, you're not helping anyone. That's a downfall of contribute. So when I said that to Ira and to Jason, you're like, you're right. I do tend to do that. And if we learn, hey, the challenge is learn what to say no to. You got to say no sometimes, and it's hard to say no. But the way when you do that, then you can make a bigger impact in the places where you do concentrate. And that feels good to us as contribute. So again, every why has strengths, every why has challenges, and every why has ways to overcome those challenges. And you guys went through that training. So you invested in that. And now what I love too is you're investing in Googlization Nation, because you bought 300 whys to share with your audience, with your consultants and coaches who are listening, so that they can know their why and understand themselves better and know whether this is a step they want to take.
I take it that's the QR code.
That is the QR code. Jason, you want to pitch this? You want to share, tell people what they can do?
Absolutely. Dan did a beautiful job pitching it. So yes, Googlization Nation, in our partnership with Why Institute, we went ahead and we purchased some whys, because we have seen the power of the 5 minutes it takes to discover which of the 9 whys you have, how it just unlocks your entire life and puts everything in alignment. And so we wanted to do this for you. So we've gone ahead and purchased whys. For those of you that are with us today that are listening, doesn't matter whether you're a coach, consultant, what line of work you're in. If you scan this QR code that you see on the screen, we've also dropped the URL link. If you can't scan the QR code, we've dropped the URL link into the comments for the live stream. You can click on it there from your computer. But if you have your phone handy, scan this QR code. It's going to take you through the very simple process of discovering your why within 5 minutes. The first essential step in self-awareness. So if you have always been wondering what your why is, today's your lucky day. You're going to find out in 5 minutes as soon as you scan this code. And that is one of our many gifts that we would love to give to you, Googlization Nation, as we're kicking off this amazing sponsorship and partnership with the Why Institute moving forward. And so that link, it is good, and the QR code is good until 4 o'clock Eastern time today. So this is not a, hey, in perpetuity forever. It's good. It's good until 4 o'clock Eastern time today. So go ahead and do it. It only takes 5 minutes for you to get on the road of discovering more about yourself at the highest level, understanding your why and how that can help put everything else in alignment in your life.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
So it's only 5 minutes, but the why discovery, there's over 1,500 possible question options. So there's a big difference between a test, a quiz, an assessment, and the YOS discovery. Just so you know, because I built it, I created the algorithm, I programmed the software. Another time, I'm going to write, my second book's going to be called The Power of Pissed Off, because I got so pissed off one weekend that I figured if that knucklehead can do this, then I'm going to figure it out myself. And I developed the algorithm, I learned the software, and I programmed the software in one weekend, the same thing that we're using now. But there's over 1,500 possible question options. And I used logic-based programming so that when you answer one question, it wipes away all the ones you don't need to answer. And your next question is based on the answer that you gave in the previous question. So a test or a quiz or an assessment is like 20 questions, you answer them, and then it scores it and then gives you an answer. This is all logic-based. So based on what you answer, it changes all the questions. And you are only going to have to answer about 10 questions, even though there's more than 1,500. The YOS discovery has over 4,000 questions, and you'll only have to answer about 30 to get to your why, how, and what, and create your message for you. So that's a little distinction that I want people to understand, because when they take it, they're going to say, oh, that was only 10 questions. How could that do it? No. It was 1,500 questions. You only had to answer. How many of you want to answer 1,500 questions, right? None of us.
None of us do. And you know, that you bring up a great point, Gary, is the simplicity. So I want to point out, Ira and Jason, you probably noticed it's a better way to do it. You get a clear answer, and he made it simple. Right? That's what Gary does. And when you live your why, how, and what, that's what you do. Gary's always looking for a better way. It started out with spending 6 months with Simon to figure out his why, and then getting it down to an hour and a half, and then getting it down to an hour. And they say, hey, we can do it in 5 minutes. Let's do it using logic-based programming. And then after a while of doing the why, I said, hey, I bet we could do the YOS that way, because it's better, it's clear, and it's simple. And that's what I love about it. And that's what appealed to me about the process and the system, what brought me on board, and probably brought you guys on board too, right? Made you say, you know what, that's something we want to share with our network.
Absolutely. And it feels like an Armani suit. I mean, once you know your why, how, and your what, you're like, this feels good. I like how it fits. And it makes you feel a certain way like you've never felt before. And we're excited for the rest of Googlization Nation to start feeling that way too.
I know we're coming up toward the end here, and we don't want to keep people longer than they can because they got these busy schedules.
Right.
But a lot of, in addition to the consultants and the coaches that are in Googlization Nation and follow us, there's a lot of employers, and that's really our audience. I mean, we're looking to go out. And many people have used DISC before, as you said, Gary, MBTI, a lot of other tools to help with team building, help people understand, use it for communication, use it for sales, customer service, all that stuff. What I was really super pleased to find, and I love how you said this, is that you can use, it's not only from an employer side saying, well, each person can identify their why. We can help understand how to approach them, how to design the work around them. How do we stem this quiet quitting, the quits rates? There's a new phenomenon. I just read about it last night. It's lifestyle exhaustion. So everybody comes up with new terms to identify. Instead of talking about stress and burnout, we come up with new terms that supposedly solves it. But in order for employers to help, they can do that. But it's also critical. It's not just an individual thing. You have a team OS, a team.yos. And I love how you present it. It's see why to why.
Yes.
See why to why. I mean, it's a brilliant tagline. I love that. You'll be hearing a lot about that, Googlization Nation. But I think that's the power behind it, because it's not only, oh, we need to help people with self-development, but we're so busy and we're talking about layoffs and slowdowns and inflation and the economy and all these things. But again, for so simply is to be able to have your employees and your managers invest 5 minutes of time and get the results, and then see why to why. Yep. I think that's brilliant, guys.
Well, here's what happens. So if you're watching this right now, you didn't know our YOS, you would look at Dan and you'd look at Ira and Jason and myself, and you would create your own narrative around what you think you see. You'd look at our hair, our glasses, how we're dressed, how we're holding ourselves, what's in the background. You'd look at all these different things and you would come up with what you think you're seeing.
Right.
And then that's who we would become. And that's how you would treat us. And so you might use words that we don't connect with or we don't like because you're just trying to do the best you can with the information that you have. But once you know our why, how, and what, it strips away all that extra stuff and it gets down to the essence of who we are and the language we speak and how we want to be talked to. And when you talk to us, the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, what if they don't want to be treated like you want to be treated? So the platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated. And how you do that is by knowing their YOS. So you just take a quick look at their YOS, the language they speak, the things they want to hear, and you speak to them in a way that they want to be spoken to. And that's how you build a great team. That's how you create an inspired team. That's how you find if you have the right people in the right place doing the right things, that they're passionate about what they're doing. It makes so many of the challenges that we have so much easier because you actually have some real data that you can work with. And building that's how we hire. So if you're in a position where you're trying to hire somebody, I know in today's world, you just almost sometimes want a body there, but think about what it costs you to have the wrong hire and how much wasted money and energy that is. If you know the position and you know which whys would be great for that position, then those are the ones that you bring in and they'll love what you're doing. They'll love to do that for you. So it just shortcuts everything. Dan, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're a leader, I like to think of it as a puzzle piece. When I talk about how my relationship with Gary, he's a better way, clarify, simplify guy. What I bring is contribute, challenge, and make sense. So what I know based on what Gary just said is when I bring something to Gary, yeah, I care about contributing and I care about doing things differently and I care about making sense of things. But if I want Gary to buy in, I bring it to him in his language. I walk into his office over at Y Institute and I knock and I say, hey, Gary, let me show you a better way to do this. Let me show you how a clear plan that I developed and let me show you how simple it is. And guess what he's doing? He's doing this. I know how to talk to him. And it's not that I'm cheating. I'm just taking what I'm bringing and packaging it for his ears. And so if you're a leader and you have people in your organization, you're like, man, they never listen to me. They never do anything that I ask them to do the way I ask them to do it. And then you find out that their why is to challenge the status quo. Hello. Now you know that when you bring stuff to them, they're going to challenge it. They're going to try to do it their own way. So with those people, let's just give them bumpers. Here's your boundaries. You can play in here all you want. And guess what? They're going to be happier because you take a challenge person, you put them in a box, they wilt. You take a challenge person, you give them bumpers and you say, hey, you can get creative all you want in here. Guess what? They flourish. So again, every why has strengths. I was just using challenge, but every why has strengths and challenges. I was talking to a Clarify coach this morning, and Clarifies, we give them a hard time because they ask so many questions because they want to be clear. But what he said is, and it's a gift, clarifiers, because they ask so many questions, their clients feel heard. They feel understood. Because they're asking questions. Clarifiers ask you, Ira, well, tell me more about that. I want to hear more. Tell me more about it. And guess what? When people are asking us questions about ourselves, we feel important, right? So clarifiers bring that gift of making people feel like your story matters because I want to understand you. So I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And that's the gift that they bring. So again, that's a strength. There's challenges and we overcome those challenges. But when we have to know that in order to overcome those challenges. And that's why I think it's fabulous. This gift you're giving to your Googlization nation is amazing. Thank you so much, Ira and Jason, for partnering with us and for sharing this gift with your fans.
Well, and thank you for helping us discover our whys. I know Ira and I, just in the short amount of time that we've discovered this, we've just absolutely fallen in love with it. We know that our listeners are going to as well. And again, the beauty of it is, regardless of whatever shoes you're wearing right now, whether you're an employer, whether you're a coach, a consultant, there is purpose in this why, whether it's discovering it about yourself, using it with clients, using it within your teams so that you can collaborate and work as a cohesive team better. The functions and utilities of understanding your why are limitless. And the benefits are just absolutely incredible. So we are over the moon excited to have the sponsorship, and certainly know Googlization Nation. This is not the last you're going to hear about the Y Institute. You're going to be hearing from about them every Wednesday, live on our episodes moving forward. So don't worry if you're scrambling, you're trying to jot stuff down like, oh, I need this information. You are going to be hearing plenty more from Gary and Dan and Y Institute, and from Ira and I, and the resources and things that we share with you each week from the Y Institute, as we now are key partners, strategic partners together, and helping create these healthy connections in people's lives and work. Yeah, Gary, one more thing.
Yeah, well, what I really love about this is that you two, Ira and Jason, you guys didn't just say, hey, we want to get you in and give us this and give us this and give us this and give us this. You guys went through the training. You guys are experts in your own right. You guys speak the language. They can ask you lots and lots of questions that you have the answers for. It's not just someone that's supporting you. It's you're part of us. Because our vision at the Y Institute is to be the first step that people take when they're trying to figure out who they are. To be that first step. Our goal is to impact 1 billion people in the next 5 years. And so that's why connections and collaboration like this is so critical to getting there, because you guys have a big influence. You're one of the top, 0.5%?
Yes.
Of podcasts. That's very impressive. And you've got a lot of people that follow you. So we appreciate you being part of our team as well. We're being part of the Y Society is what we say. So thank you guys.
Dan, we're going to give you the final word.
I end every email, and Gary ends every email. This is so cool that you guys are giving people the opportunity to live their why. So my final word is discover your why, communicate your why, and go live your why.
Thank you both. We'll be talking to you much, much more. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Time today, guys.
Thank you.
Dan, Gary.
Wow, that was fun. We could do that all day, but we're going to be back tomorrow, Wednesday. We've got it fits in incredibly well. Our guest is Sarah White from Aspect 43. Her company, they're an analyst, a research and advisory and analyst firm. They study the workplace. They have a new report called Workforce Insights 2022. We're going to hear a lot of things that we already knew. A lot of people are burnt out. We're also going to hear about the differences of how employers and employees are approaching it, and certainly why is a solution. So tomorrow, 1 p.m., we're going to be live again, Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Sarah White, Aspect 43. We're going to be talking about Workforce Insights 2022 and looking forward. So really appreciate everybody being here today. I'm Robert Wolfe. Thank you for being part of Googlization Nation.
And I'm Jason Cochran. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast, we'd love for you to do so. Drop us a rating and review as well. And until next time, sending it back over to you, Ira.
And until next time, don't let the shift hit your plans. And one way to do that, find your why. So remember, the code expires at 4 p.m. Eastern Time today. Make sure you take advantage of it. Till next time.